Okay, so what we are looking at is week 8. So we are in week 8, rhetorical analysis. And what I'm talking about, you only have 2 things this week, but they're big, they're major, which is the draft. I want a full working draft for you to submit. And then I want you to do a self-review assignment. This is where you're reviewing it on your own for key elements. So in rhetorical analysis draft assignment, as you know, I have some things embedded, in particular, the actual instructions for the essay. This is really important that you go over them and that you review them and that your essay is set up and structured according to these instructions. If you go through here, step 1 and step 2 should be done. You should already have your ad. You should have taken notes. Hopefully you kept your ad within your magazine, so you have all of the information in case you miss something on your notes. But essentially we're at step 3, which is drafting. Remember, even in your drafting, in this particular essay, you're going to use headings. And you can see in there, I have the headings identified for you. So you're going to use the heading introduction, and then you're going to have the heading visual aesthetics. Then you'll have a heading called rhetorical situation. You will have the heading rhetorical appeals. And you will have another heading, advertising 15 basic appeals. Finally, the heading of conclusion. So your headings, I want to match what I give you in the instructions. Each heading represents a section of the essay that you're going to be including. So within the introduction, I tell you it's a paragraph, and this is all of the information that I want you to have within that paragraph. So it's going to be a fairly good sized paragraph. You're going to briefly describe the advertisement. In other words, you're not going to go into detail. But in that brief description, you'll give some main features, explain why you chose this particular ad, give the reader a very brief context of the ad. In other words, where was it found? What magazine does it appear? The issue, that kind of thing. Also refer to the audience. What audience is it trying to appeal to? The purpose of your introduction is to build toward your thesis statement. So all of that is leading up to your thesis statement. And keep in mind, your thesis statement is 2 to 3 sentences. And I want you following that formula that I gave you of what is in each sentence. And then I give you 2 examples here. Don't forget, within your thesis statements, use transition words, whereas, however. You want that for flow with the reader. Next section, visual aesthetics. This is going to be about 2 paragraphs. This is where you will go into detail about what the ad looks like. This is where I want you to use lots of descriptors and very detailed descriptors. You're painting a picture for the reader. Pretend the reader cannot see it and you have to explain it. Make sure you are addressing things like layout, where things are located, specific colors being used for specific items. Do not be generic. Don't say, red, what kind of red. Be very descriptive. Make sure you also address text and any other images that are in there aside from the product. Now, pay attention also to focal point. Where's the eye drawn to first, second, third? And really do a good job of descriptive language here in this section. The next section is rhetorical situation. This is where you're talking about the context of where you found the ad. Therefore, you need to understand and do some research on where the ad appeared. So for example, if it's a magazine, this is an easy one to do. You research the media kit for the magazine, and it will give you all the information you need. things like the writer or the company, who's the company making the product, who owns the magazine, what can you find out about, I'm sorry, magazine is going to be C. So who is the company that makes the product being sold? And sometimes you might want to address who's the one that makes the magazine as well. What can you find about the history of the product, the history of the company? Do they have a mission statement? Are there other types of products? Okay. What product or service is it trying to persuade people to buy? What kind of details can you find about it? Where is it sold? How much is it sold for? What kinds of colors does it come in? And then the context is magazine that it appears in. Now, again, if you chose not to do a magazine, you were not forced to do a magazine, you were allowed to find an advertisement on the internet, but it has to be in context, which means it has to be appearing somewhere. You can't Google ads and go from there. So where did this ad appear? Where did you find this ad? Where's it being housed right now as an advertisement? It could be an online magazine, absolutely. It could be in your Facebook page, or it could be in a blog or a vlog that someone you follow, their webpage. A lot of those YouTube people, YouTube stars, whatever, also have advertisers. They're supported by advertising. So you need to be able to research and analyze the context. And then intended audience. Again, you need to determine who is the intended audience. How do you determine that? You're going to have to do some research. Now, again, this is why I kind of pushed you to magazine ads. That's the easiest way to find it, because all of the information you need will be in the media kit. But if you chose not to do that, then you need to figure out, do some research. Who is the demographic for the context of the ad? So if you found an ad on a particular blogger, so for example, I watch one of the vloggers, it's a video logger that I watch, one of her webcasts I always watch is Sew Sweetness. She's a sewing person. I watch her every week and I look at her web pages all the time, and she is advertiser supported, which means she has key advertisements on her website. And so I would need to do some research and try to figure out who is her audience. Who are those ads being targeted to? It's not everyone. They are targeted to a specific audience. Essentially, who's drawn to that product line. Now, within this section, it's very important you are citing and researching and quoting in this part of the paper. In this section, you have to validate where you got your information from. It cannot be off the top of your head. So for example, if you went to the magazine's media kit, absolutely, you just need to cite that web page. And you could refer to it. So you could say something within your in-text, something like, according to the official People media kit, People magazine's media kit, their demographic is, and whatever. And so there you go. You have now referred to where you got your information. And then all you have to do is works cited page, give me the correct citing for the web page. If you find it somewhere else, you need to state where you found it. And then if you're going to quote from it, which is totally fine, you could say something like, according to Track and Field's official website, their demographic is, quote, and then whatever you're quoting from that web page. That is perfectly appropriate as well. But you do need to refer to it, and you need to have it on your works cited page. It's called in-text citation when you are writing it within your essay. That's the quote, that kind of a thing. And then the works cited page is where you give me all the detailed information so I can look it up myself. That would be, where you would plug it in on Night Site, and then that's the information that would go there. Lucas, you had a question?
No.
Oh, I answered it, or you forgot it. Okay, either way, it's a win.
No,
Okay. The next section now is rhetorical appeals. In this section, you are talking about ethos, logos, and pathos, and you need to dedicate at least 2 paragraphs. And what you're doing here, number one, you need to make sure you define each of those appeals. You can do it in your own words, or you may use it with a direct quote. However, wherever you're quoting from, you will need to what? Cite it. Thank you. Don't forget to use the 3 I's, which means introduction, who the author is, credential, then your quote, and then a little bit after it, okay? So along with defining each of the 3 in this section, you also need to relate to which ones appear in your advertisement and how it is done. So if you say there are elements of ethos within your ad, you have to identify what those elements are. The ad uses elements of ethos through famous model use that people can associate to that person and well-known branding for credibility. Okay, great. Now you've identified that one. Then look at logos, then look at pathos. Be sure you explain how they're appearing in the ad. The next section, this is advertising 15 basic appeals. Now, if you did your homework assignment right, you probably already have this part done because that was what you had to submit on Sunday. At this point, you are looking at the jib fouls. And remember, you are identifying which appeals from that article appear in your advertisement and how they're functioning to persuade the audience. Once again, in this section, you need to quote and provide citation. You're quoting by giving me the name of the appeal, because that's Jib Fowles. He identified it. You're quoting that. And then the citation will be, of course, on the Works Cited page. And remember, I already talked to you about how that citation, that was part of your job in the last assignment. You had to practice citing it correctly on a Works Cited. Remember, it's an anthology. So in this section as well, you are quoting and providing citation at the end in Works Cited. Now, finally, you have your conclusion. This is a paragraph. This is where you're sharing your opinion about the quality of the ad. You're looking at all of the elements of the ad, taking into consideration and making a determination, was it successfully persuading the audience it was supposed to, or did it not successfully the audience that it was supposed to? Now, remember, it's its intended audience. It's not persuading everyone. When you've identified the audience, did it successfully persuade that targeted audience? And then, of course, talk about what were some of the ad's strengths, what were some weaknesses, suggest improvements, how could it have been improved in some way. And then, of course, the final critical thinking piece of this particular essay is, why is it important for us to learn on how to view or how to analyze advertisements in a critical way? Make sure you apply that both socially and culturally. Now, I have a big blurb about plagiarism. So in this particular essay, I am expecting you to have MLA in-text citation and a Works Cited page. Make sure you give credit where credit is due. In particular, Jib Fowles and all of your research. Those are the big areas. This is what you are drafting this week. So in your draft, the draft assignment, that is what you are going to upload. In order to get full credit for your draft, you must have all elements addressed, which means all sections are present and you have your Works Cited. And then you have embedded your in-text citations somewhere or where the appropriate sections are. Before you do that, before you submit the draft, make sure you do the self-review assignment. The self-review is a worksheet. Make sure you have it in front of you and go through it. And you're going to read your draft. Instead of doing a peer review, you're doing a self-review. So the first step is you read through your finished rough draft. Then I want you to answer the first questions and then answer another round. Those are reflection questions. And then finally upload this document. So you're reading it on an ABCD. And then the reflection questions, you're just giving me personal feedback. So first set of questions, I want you to look at your essay. Now, this is when you are ready to submit your draft. Rate your responsiveness to the assignment. What does that mean? It means how well did you follow the prompt? How well did you follow the instructions? In other words, do you have all the sections? Do you have the appropriate headings? Do you have in-text citation? Do you have a works cited page? That's what I'm talking about there. Number 2, rate your thesis. Look at your thesis, read it, and review it. How clear and direct is it explaining the purpose, stance, and did you use the 3-sentence structure? Now remember, you're rating yourself on a scale of A to F, A, B, C, you know, that kind of a thing. Then number 3, rate your focus for the paper, meaning how well does each paragraph focus on just one point? All sentences relate to that topic sentence within each paragraph. And then, of course, all sections relate back to your thesis. Number 4, rate your organization. How organized are you? Did you do it in the order that I told you? Are you limiting your items you're talking about to those sections? Are they building? Are you using transitions? Okay. Number 5, rate your own development, meaning how well are you supporting your claims? For example, did you use a direct quote, a paraphrase, or summary from the sources? Things like MediaCat, product web pages. Did you describe and analyze your ad, answer questions within those sections that I gave you within the instructions? And then number 6, rate your tone and level of critical thinking. What this means is you're doing more than just telling me things. You're demonstrating some detail and explanation, not just listing things. Connect your knowledge of appeals and critical thinking and understanding the information about your ad. Okay. Then number 7, rate your mechanics. In other words, grammar, spelling, capitalization. Is it pretty clean? Do you have a lot of errors? Then finally, 8, rate your MLA citations. Do you have in-text citation? Did you do the ACTs before the quotes? Do you have the works cited page? So these are items I want you to rate. On questions 1 through 8, you're going to give yourself an A, B, C, D, or E, or F, right? And this is you rating yourself within your final draft, okay? So you don't want to rate yourself until you're ready to submit the draft. Does that make sense? The second set of questions, this is where you're giving me some feedback. Briefly, what do you think you still need to work on to make this essay fantastic? What are the most useful things that have helped you so far in writing your analysis? What do you need to clarify before you revise it one more time? And then share with me anything you want to know about your paper in its current state, or if you want something about the course in general. In other words, how can I help you get your essay in tip-top shape? Okay. Now, you need to complete this and submit this on the draft that you're uploading. Okay. Here is, I want to give you kind of some very specifics on how I grade. So when you upload your rhetorical draft, basically in a nutshell, I will give you full credit for the draft if you have all parts, in other words, all sections, you have items in all sections, and you have done your in-text citations, and you have done your works cited page. I don't give you detailed feedback on this. I give you incredibly detailed instructions for what I'm looking at. If you want a conference with me, feel free to make a Zoom meeting. I will be happy to go over it with you, give you more direct feedback. But to get credit on this draft, I'm not giving you feedback. You're going to have credit if you met that criteria or not. The second item, though, the self-review assignment, this one, based on whatever you write in the bottom questions, that is where my feedback is going to be given to you. So if you tell me I still don't understand a particular thing, then I'm going to go into your essay. I'm going to look at that, and then I'm going to give you feedback on that item. Yeah, absolutely. You don't even have to ask. So the self-review, I will give you feedback on. I will give you, if you ask for it. If you don't have anything that you're having trouble with, then I won't give you any feedback. You'll just get credit for it. But I do go in and read those 5 questions. I actually look at all of your ratings. And based on the question responses is where my feedback will come on this one. So they're both related. Does that kind of give you a good overview for rhetorical analysis draft and the self-review? Okay. Any questions on that for this week? So this week, I want to be conferencing with you. If you come to class in person, I'll be happy to conference with you in person. Otherwise, make sure you drop in during my office hours or set up a Zoom meeting with me if you want me to conference with you. You're also welcome to do a writing consultation, although it is not required. You are welcome to get as many writing consultations as you want on this to make sure you're going to score the way you want to score. Does that make sense? Good, bad, ugly? No? Question? Alexis, do you have a question?
I was kind of confused on how to put it, like how to start it off.
How to start the essay?
Because I had started it.
Okay.
Like I feel like, because when I had started, because I thought we had able to do last week or a week or two ago, I already was 2 weeks in, but I was kind of confused on how doing it.
Okay. So you are doing it. Let me go back here. Go to the instructions right there, which is the same ones I showed you a couple weeks ago. Okay. And you're going to start it exactly this way. Introduction is your first thing. You're going to have the header, introduction. Okay. Don't forget, set up your paper in MLA format. That's a given. You know, you got your header, you got your first 4 lines, and you got your title. Then you're going to have the heading, introduction. Within the introduction, this is what you're doing in that paragraph. Describing the advertisement real briefly. You're explaining why you chose it. The reader, give the reader a context, right? And then you're leading all of this up to your thesis. Your thesis should be 3 sentences long. And it has to have those items within it.
So the pieces are supposed to be that long.
Thesis should be 3 sentences, and they'll be very long. So your introduction would be a good sized paragraph. I mean, it's minimum 7 sentences. Does that make sense? It can be more than that. It can be longer than that. It depends on how much you say in the introduction. But 7 good sized sentences. Then the next section, new heading. And you're going to use 2 paragraphs in that section talking detailed about the way the ad looks and the layout and focal point, all those kinds of things. And you're going to follow that for each section. So every time I have that section, that heading, I tell you, these are the things I want in it. Does that make sense? Does that help a little bit? Okay, excellent. Go for it.
was kind of struggling on making like a thesis statement too.
Okay, so those are things that are fantastic. Let's do in conferencing. So let's work together today. And you pull it up and I'll work with you and we'll talk about it. Absolutely. Yeah. So great question. Kind of struggling with thesis, had some questions on thesis. Those are fantastic conference opportunities. I am happy to help you individually. Just set a Zoom appointment, or if you are a live in-class person, come to class, and I will be happy to talk with you in detail about your particular one, wherever you're at, and help you get it to the level that you want to be. So at this point, I am going to stop recording, and I want everyone to have their draft uploaded no later than Sunday, the review sheet no later than Sunday, and make sure you reach out to me for a Zoom conference if you desire it.